are somewhere in the ballpark of 500 tips that have been called in by the public from a variety of places, primarily from northwestern PA, western New York, but from a number of other states as well. We continue to receive that substantial number of calls from residents of those areas that I've described, and we ask that people in these areas regularly review their doorbell or surveillance camera footage for anything suspicious. If there is something that they have a concern about, please let us take a look. We continue to use technology, including DNA comparisons, to either include or exclude Burham from various sites. As I've told you, there are currently in excess of 15 federal, state, and local agencies actively participating in this manhunt. Investigators remain convinced that Burham remains in this general area, but as I have indicated, we are aggressively following up on all leads. Numerous state and federal partners in adjacent states are working closely with us on this matter as we all work to ensure the safety of the public. During the course of this investigation, we have also learned that a drone may have been operating in the immediate area of the jail prior to the escape. We're looking for more information, and we're asking anyone who might have information about the drone operator or the nature or duration of the flight to please contact us immediately. We continue to ask that people nationwide familiarize themselves with the picture of Michael Burham, and please contact us if you believe you may have seen him. We consider Burham to be armed and dangerous, and without going into a lot of detail, we have additional information that we have gleaned recently that causes me to have additional concerns that he may be armed. Anyone who may have information is asked to contact our command post at 717-265-9650. There is a combined reward of $19,500 offered by Crime Stoppers and the U.S. Marshals for information leading to the apprehension of Burham. This remains a very active investigation involving in excess of 200 law enforcement officers at the state, federal, and local level. State police and our partners are utilizing all appropriate resources, and we are absolutely committed to the safety of the residents of the Warren County area and beyond. Again, anyone with information or concerns is asked to contact our command post tip line, 717-265-9650. I'd be happy to take your questions at this time.
Lieutenant Colonel,
yes, sir.
You mentioned yesterday that you'd taken some items to be tested. You also said you found items yesterday within the last 24 hours. So has testing on those items been completed? Can you link any to Burham, and have you found anything new in the last 24 hours?
Testing has been completed on some of the items, but not all of the more critical items that we're waiting to hear. In one case, we were able to rule out a sighting. In another case, with some items found, we're still waiting for some additional testing. I hope that we can get that turned around possibly as early as tomorrow, but could be the following day.
Any additional items in the last 24 hours?
Yes.
Lieutenant Colonel, you mentioned DNA testing. It's been really kind of crucial here. Are you testing cups, drinking supplies, eating supplies?
At this point, I don't want to really disclose what specifically those items are, but DNA can be extracted, excuse me, DNA can be extracted from nearly anything that a person touches or comes into contact with. And so we look at any item that we believe he may have handled or otherwise had direct contact with.
Can you give more detail on the campsite stockpiles that you just mentioned?
Not at this time, I cannot.
Do you believe that they were set up by Mr. Burham?
We believe that that the stockpiles we have found were likely put there by him, and again, some testing will help us conclusively determine that in cases where we're not otherwise able to do that.
Can you tell us anything more about the drone? And is that why you think he's getting some kind of assistance? Is that potentially that assistance?
Well, we just need to know more about it. So I'm not a big believer in coincidences, but what I would tell you is that just prior to the escape, there was a drone flying in that area. It could be that there is a perfectly innocent and reasonable explanation. It could also be that it was somehow connected to his escape, and we intend to find out more about that, as we believe that if it's not, if there's not an innocent explanation, that perhaps that assists us in finding him and also finding anyone who's
Thank you.
providing aid.
Can you give us any specific information on areas that you might have isolated where you think he may be? I mean, there's so little specifics on kind of where you're looking and where you think he could be.
Well, the reason that I'm not being more specific is because we continue to receive tips and investigative leads that are not really isolated to one small geographic area. There are certainly some places that are of more interest to myself and our investigators than others, but we're not limited to those. And so I don't want to, I really don't want to disclose where those are. I don't want people outside of those areas to think that their tips might not be as taken as seriously, or that they shouldn't be as vigilant, when he certainly has the ability, at a minimum, to be mobile on foot and to cover some distance. And if he gets access to a vehicle or gets assistance, potentially even move over a larger distance.
Lieutenant Colonel, are you actively interviewing any possible accomplices?
Yes.
Can you expound?
No.
You said you were getting tips from other states. Are we talking states more down south, like previously when he was picked up, or is it more Hamptons area?
I'm sorry, what was the
You said you're
question?
getting tips from all different states, not
Yes.
just New York and Pennsylvania. What, are we talking like southern states when he was picked up before?
The bulk of the tips would be coming from the area that I described, northwestern Pennsylvania, western New York, but certainly out into Ohio, and there have been a few tips from a variety of other states that I wouldn't really categorize as in one particular geographic area of the country. We've gotten them in a number of different locations.
Lieutenant Colonel, you'd mentioned that you had additional reason to believe he was armed. Have you and your team found weapons, shells, something of that nature that leads you to that?
As I said, I'm not really prepared to discuss that. I think it's important to keep people, in the interest of transparency, as informed as possible. There may be a point where I can talk about that a little more, but for today, I believe I'm going to have to stop with, we have reason to believe that he may be.
That's based on findings of some variety.
Based on findings and investigative leads. Yes.
I know you said before you considered him to be armed. Would you say with more confidence you can say that now than you did maybe a couple days ago?
I would say that I have even more concern than I did a few days ago.
How close is the drone to the jail, pointing to the jail specifically? Who called that one in?
We've interviewed a couple of people who have provided us information that they heard, and I don't know if any of them saw it, but they heard the drone. And it could be that one of them saw it. I didn't participate in the interview myself, but it was immediately adjacent to the jail, in the area right around there, whether it was over the parking lot, the street, whatever, but in that general area.
You mentioned all these tips that you've received. The public's clearly very scared. We're now in day 6 of the search. What message do you have for residents who may be fearful that you've lost headway?
Well, I wouldn't characterize it ever that we've lost headway. I think if anything, we've continued a very aggressive search. We've cleared a lot of areas. We continue to follow up on every single tip or lead that comes in. And I think with every one of those, I truly believe we get closer and closer to capturing him. So my message to the residents would be continue your vigilance, continue to do the things we've asked you to do to keep your homes secure, your vehicles secure. Don't allow things to lay out that he might find value in if he takes them. And again, the additional step, we have found it tremendously valuable from a number of residents or those calling in tips when they've been able to provide doorbell or other surveillance video. That's why we're asking them as another step to please review that on a regular basis and let us know if you see anything suspicious.
Lieutenant Colonel, you said since the beginning that you're confident or you believe he's still in this general area. Is that based on something more than a hunch?
It's based on my full knowledge of the investigation, all of the investigative leads, the tips, the information that we gather using technology. The whole picture is what I base that on. Can I guarantee it 100%? No. As I've said, that's why we're following up on anything that we get from outside of the area as well. And can it change at any time? Yes. If he gets access to a car, that can change in a moment. So, again, we take all of the tips seriously. We're not discounting anything until we can conclusively do so, but we continue to believe that the primary search area should still be in the general area that I've described in northwestern Pennsylvania.
Just want to clarify, on the drone, was that a tip that came in? Did folks heard a drone possibly in the area, or do you know for a fact that there actually was a drone flying in the vicinity?
Based on interviews, we are led to believe that there was a drone flying in the vicinity.
Lieutenant Colonel, you said that you're interviewing potential accomplices. Just how much more difficult does that make your investigation when you're all but certain he's receiving outside help and that he's one set of car keys away from fleeing the area?
Certainly makes it a challenge, and that's why we take it so seriously, and that's why I have cautioned anyone who thinks about or has offered any assistance. We will prosecute you, and we will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law.
Lieutenant Colonel, do you anticipate calling in more manpower or assets? You're at 200 right now, but it's such a vast, deep area. Are you satisfied with the number of people you have, or do you think you might need more? And also, at what point do you say we need to scale this back? Because the longer you go, the more expensive it becomes, and there's obviously a cost there.
There is a cost. All of this is driven by the needs of the investigation. If I needed more people, they would be here today. As we go into this, it's why we've scaled up. As we go into this, we've reassessed multiple times a day whether we have adequate resources. I have not found at this point that we don't have adequate resources. In fact, with all of the federal partners that have arrived on scene here, along with a significant commitment from the state police, we're able to spread that cost out over a number of agencies. We're not incurring the significant overtime that we might otherwise if we were doing this on our own. And I believe we're conducting it in a way that fiscally is sustainable. That's important as well. But most importantly, we're conducting it in a way that allows us to get where we need to be, and that's to capture Burham.
Lieutenant Colonel, do you think that, have you guys noticed any periods of time where there might be lulls in his activity? And I mean, day or night, is there a time where you think that he's more actively on the move or not?
Yes, but I don't want to elaborate on that. There are times where tips, video, those kinds of things seems to be more prevalent. But again, I think it would be inappropriate for me to comment.
And again, to the day side extent of it then, aside from obviously urging the general community to be vigilant, have you guys had to, say with summer camps or people out in outdoor camping areas or restaurants that might be outside, have there been any places where you've asked smaller pockets of the community to perhaps curtail their outdoor activities or be more hyper-vigilant because of the nature of where they are?
Not at this point. We've not taken those steps. And again, in large part because we have not identified a specific threat to a very specific geographic area. If we thought that that threat existed, or if we were convinced, absolutely convinced we had him in a small geographic area, certainly we'll take some other steps then for the protection of the public.
Lieutenant Colonel, have you had any confirmed sightings as of today?
We've had a number of sightings. It is difficult at times to say whether it is 100% confirmed. There are sightings that we believe are accurate. There are sightings that we're still waiting for some test results to add to that level of confidence. It's in many cases we're relying on an eyewitness and a description and whatever other evidence we can collect there.
That seems a little more confident than yesterday. Is that fair to say?
I think that, again, I go back to my total understanding of this investigation and this situation, and that's why I still believe, and that's why when you hear my confidence, I personally, and I've been doing this a lot of years, I personally believe we're on the right track here. Again, we'll follow any lead anywhere because it can change, but based on not only my experience, but an awful lot of talent that's over there in that command post and out in the field, I've not heard anything to convince me that we should change our tactic.
Burham or Burham?
I'm pronouncing it Burham, but I don't know. I've not personally spoken to him.
Is there a homicide charge attached to the kidnapping as well?
There is not a homicide charge connected to that. There is kidnapping, burglary, and some other related charges are what we charged here in Pennsylvania. The potential homicide charge is out of New York State and not related to anything that the Pennsylvania State Police has been investigating.
Lieutenant Colonel, given the information on the drone and the other information that we know regarding how he got out of the jail, sheets, climbing up, how well do you believe he knew the weaknesses in security of that jail?
You know, when the investigation into the entire escape plot is done by the Warren City Police Department, and when our investigation is done and we have him in custody, I'll be able to give you a much better understanding of that. Until we have all of those pieces, I really wouldn't want to speculate about what may or may not be problematic at the jail.
Do you have him on camera anywhere after his escape?
Again, we've received a number of video clips, but don't want to elaborate beyond that.
Ronald, I've noticed in the mountainous area that cell phone signals are spotty at best. Is there any workaround? Because even if people spot him, they may not be able to contact authorities in a timely manner. Are there any workarounds that you're trying to make so that, you know, you're not an hour behind while people try to get to a phone or a cell phone signal?
I don't have any ability to increase the cell signal across the entire area, but where we are working, at times we've boosted cell signals in those areas, and so if someone else were in that area and saw something, they would also be able to utilize that enhanced signal. You know, our people are using a variety of radios and other communications equipment and communicating effectively in those areas. If someone has a situation to report and they have poor service, and hopefully they would be able to move to an area, a ridge top, something else close by, and make that call then. We want to hear from them as quickly as possible.
Actually, I have a question for the sheriff. Sheriff Seidel, it came up in the County Board of Commissioner press conference earlier that they've been looking at repairing the roof of the jail earlier this year. Were you aware of these plans?
I was not.
So no one had told you that there was possibly a failure in the roof, or there was a structural?
No, I can't speak to anything of that roof. I just cannot, no. I was not aware of any ongoing repairs or any updates or anything of that nature for the roof of that building.
For the Lieutenant Colonel, with inclement weather like storms and rain or set predicted over the next few days, are you at all concerned about how that may affect the search?
You know, it can have some impact on the searchers, but our people are pretty tenacious, and you know, there was some rain early this morning that didn't impact any of the operations that we had going on, and in fact, in some ways, I kind of welcome it. If he is out there in the woods, it's going to make him a whole lot less comfortable than it's going to make our people that are searching for him.
Lieutenant Colonel, in terms of interviewing potential accomplices, can you disclose what type of individual these might be, whether it be somebody inside the prison or somebody he knows outside in the community?
No, I wouldn't want to comment on.
Lieutenant Colonel, given the increase to it in the reward being for information of apprehension, how much would you encourage people to continue to call you, not maybe take matters into their own hands?
Well, certainly we don't want people to take matters into their own hands. We do consider him to be a dangerous individual, and if he is in fact armed, that may not go well. People can certainly defend themselves, obviously, but I would not ask them to do anything to apprehend him. And in terms of the reward, simply calling us with the information may make them eligible for the reward. They don't need to capture him. They need to give us information that leads to his apprehension.
Sheriff, just curious, I know that you are on the prison board, but in a conversation with you, you let me know that you don't run the jail, it's not your responsibility. It's the warden, but we haven't seen or heard from the warden since all of this has happened. Has he been instructed not to talk or not to discuss it?
Well, I don't know if he's been instructed with that, but again, with an ongoing investigation, we'll just say into that facility, with him being a figurehead of that facility, my guess is there has been just determination that you don't want him, we'll just say, involved or out here doing this, because potentially he has information to share with law enforcement. He has information during that investigation and throughout this investigation to share with those investigators, everything from rosters to, you know, everything in between. So that's my guess of why he hasn't been around, just strictly because he is working hand in hand and he is in the center of that investigation helping.
Lieutenant Colonel, I have a question about the drone.
Yes, ma'am.
We're on day 6 of the hunt, and it seems like that's a pretty big piece of information. Is that something that's been held? Have you known about the drone for several days? And I would think if it was in level with where Burham was at, some cameras might have picked it up. So why are we hearing about it now?
Actually, there aren't any cameras that picked it up, and that's why we're looking for some information. As part of the ongoing investigation, the interviews have been done, and that's where we learned about it, and that's why I'm asking about it now. But as I understand it, it does not appear on any of the surveillance footage.
So it's something that you learned about recently and sharing it now?
Yes.
Lieutenant Colonel, do you have reason to believe that he knows about the scale of the manhunt that's going on right now and the national attention that this is getting? Do you think that, do you have any reason to believe that he's been in active contact with anyone or anything that might inform him of that?
I hope he does. I hope he's very uncomfortable out there where he's at. I hope he understands how hard we will push him, how many people, how many talented people, how many resources we're bringing to put him back in prison. He should be uncomfortable with the manhunt that is going on. As I've said, we will capture him.
Do you believe that the drone dropped anything to him on the roof, potentially?
Again, that would all be part of the investigation, and we're looking for people to assist us in that matter. Okay. Well, again, I thank you all for your assistance in getting this out and letting the communities know and reminding them to be vigilant and to help us help them keep themselves secure and safe. Thank you again.